Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So over the summer, I read countless articles like this. Millennials, one of the poorest generations ever. The unluckiest generation in history. Millennials don't stand a chance. When I was reading this, I was getting concerned, as millennials have had a rough time as it is, facing one economic challenge after the other. And now, the media is simply writing them off. So I thought it's about time we can chat about the different type of investments you can get involved in and how those investments behave during times of inflation, and using this knowledge how you can grow your wealth. Being a successful millennial, I'm determined to prove those articles wrong. According to a book I've just read, The Fourth Turning, we have 7 more years before the next financial boom. So by making all the best financial decisions now, you'll be able to put yourself in the best position to ride that next financial rocket ship to the moon. Or maybe by then you would have earned enough to book yourself a trip on the Virgin Galactic rocket ship. But before we start, would you kindly please smash that like button so this video can get seen by more people. So let's talk about inflation. Simply put, inflation is when things get more expensive. Here in the UK, I remember when movie tickets used to be £3 and now they're more than double that. As a teenager, I remember buying chocolates for half the price they are selling for today, and of course, house prices have gone through the roof. Just to drive the point home even more, in Venezuela, inflation recently hit so bad that you would go to the bar, buy your first round, and by the time you go for the second round, prices have doubled at all the bars. This is because Venezuela was experiencing hyperinflation. The consumer price index has increased by 5.4% since 2020. What's even more worrying is that the last time we saw these kind of increases was just before the last financial crash in 2008. Anyway, enough talk about financial crisis. Let's look at some investment ideas and see how you can profit from times like this. So the first one is stock market. The stock market is one of the easiest ways to keep up or beat inflation. For instance, if you invest $1,000 today, 10 years from now, its value could double, triple, or who knows. So what's happening right now in the markets? Many are claiming we're in a stock market bubble. Since the pandemic, the economy has been flooded with money due to cheap loans and government stimulus. With all this money being pumped into the economy, people are spending and investing like crazy. 2020 was a record year for the everyday investor. Just to drive this point home even more, 38% of all investors were brand new with no experience. They were turning to family, friends, YouTube, and even TikTok for investment advice. Now this may sound great, more investors piling in, the stock market rising, everything green for the end of 2020. But currently, this has created a stock market bubble, and the S&P is at an all-time high, which for many experienced investors is quite worrying because the fundamentals are not really there. Most investors know to buy and hold, but I'm really wondering if this new age investor would do the same, or if they would just sell everything at the first sign of a crash. During inflationary times, the stock market has been proven to be much more volatile. If we think about it, this actually makes sense, as when the money devalues, we can purchase less items, and thus companies taking less money make less profits. This should cause economies to slow down until things start to return to normal. However, it's not that simple. Different stocks seem to perform better than others. For example, growth stocks perform better than value stocks. What's a growth stock, I find you asking? A growth stock is like a company like Netflix. They're extremely focused on expanding their business, and right now they're waging a war on many fronts against Amazon, Hulu, Disney Plus, a war for market dominance. This means they're burning through a lot of money, and as their cash flow gets squeezed, that they're spending more and more on different projects, as they fear that they may become irrelevant if they don't have lots of new projects on the go. Since interest rates are usually increased to combat inflation, companies which are heavily borrowed and more focused on growth like Netflix could be negatively impacted in times of financial crisis. So what's a value stock then? A value stock is like Johnson & Johnson. It has dominated the healthcare industry and owns brands like Tylenol, Neutrogena, and Listerine, and they've even recently come out with a vaccine for the virus. This type of business is internationally known. They have brands selling across the world and are extremely cash flow positive, making them highly recession-proof, as historically they continue to produce revenues in challenging times. So the bottom line on stocks. In theory, stocks should provide good protection against inflation, as you would normally expect stocks to grow at the same rate of inflation. However, we have to remember the stock market is not the same as the economy and is influenced by people, and people can be irrational, especially this new wave of investor which hasn't really experienced a crash before. Crypto. This is the one that everyone has been talking about in recent years. Bitcoin closed out 2020 as the best performing asset of the last decade. That is amazing. There always seems to be something going on with Bitcoin, creating huge market volatility. It drops and rebounds and drops and rebounds. This makes it very challenging to keep up with its ebbs and flows. The key difference between Bitcoin and stocks is its purpose is unclear, and it's currently not the best way to pay for things, as by the time you get to pay, the price has probably changed about 4 times, and you'll also have to wait for the payment to go through, so it's not practical. At the moment, I see Bitcoin as a store value, a lot like gold. This is because there's a limited amount of Bitcoin. As I said in my other video, there are only 21 million Bitcoin that can be mined, and that is it, no more, finito. Because the supply is limited, in theory, inflation shouldn't impact it, unlike the US dollar, where the US government can just keep printing more and more of it, devaluing it. The bottom line here is, although Bitcoin is meant to be a way that we can protect against inflation, we can't be sure how it's going to react, because at the end of the day, the market is controlled by supply and demand. And this market is full of inexperienced people who look to sell at the drop of a hat. Having said that, Bitcoin can be a great asset to have some money stored in. However, long term, the jury is out how it will perform. Real estate. In my opinion, the fastest real way to grow inflation-proof wealth is to own property. The housing market has been so hot this year that some buyers are even paying $1 million over the asking price. I've never heard anything like it. The average asking price for a house rose to $341,600 in April, the highest since the National Association of Realtors started tracking the numbers in 1999. So prices are going through the roof. Homes are selling way above their asking price and often selling within a couple of days. So what does this mean for millennial investors and home buyers? Well, I have to say it's not good news, as 70% of millennials are living paycheck to paycheck. How on earth are they supposed to afford a home in this current climate? It seems like nowadays, without a lucrative side hustle, you simply cannot achieve home ownership. But let's just say you do manage to hustle some extra money, or even earn really good money from a side hustle or a business. Would it be a good idea to invest in real estate? Well, over the years, real estate investors rarely feel the same pain as other type of investors, especially when it comes to inflation, as generally we see property values increase. Just think about it, if you're a builder and inflation hits, your money doesn't buy as many bricks or lumber. So therefore, you will have to spend more money, and this increases the price of new build homes. And due to the reduced amount of new builds, it will increase the value of the existing properties. So investing in property before inflation hits bad allows you to protect yourself against inflation. Sure, you may not see the crazy returns when prices soar on the latest meme stock or crypto coin, but you should grow your net worth over time if you buy in the right area. The benefits of owning property don't stop there, as in times of inflation, rental yields also increase as rents go up. This is due to property prices increasing and people finding it harder to get a good mortgage to buy a property. This causes a spike in demand as more people are forced out of the market and forced into renting rather than buying. Therefore, if you own rental property, you will have one of the most profitable assets in times of inflation. The days of investing exclusively in real estate, stock market, and Bitcoin are pretty much over. People are investing in classic cars, watches, baseball cards, precious metals, and even NFTs. The list goes on. The first on any list of alternative investment would always be gold. Gold is the OG of investments. The key is to own physical gold. It's really ideal for the everyday investor as they can buy it in the form of small coins like the tenth of an ounce Canadian maple. The small size makes it easy to store and sell when you need it. I definitely should have brought the missus some more gold instead of watches, perfumes and shoes. As I said, people also turn to watches, cars and even Pokemon cards. But at the end of the day, these are only worth what people are willing to pay for them. During inflation, these can be fantastic if people want what you have got. However, it's hard to predict what people will want and what they won't want. So it is a bit tricky. I always make sure I do my research and know what I am buying before I dive in. It seems to me that younger millennials certainly have an uphill battle and it will surely get worse before it gets better. However, I don't believe that millennials are the lost generation like those articles are saying. Though some things may be harder than before, millennials have more access to financial education than ever before. By becoming financially literate and making smart choices with their money, I think millennials will eventually go on to become one of the wealthiest generations in the history of mankind. Let's face it, they've lived through so much change and this gives them a certain stoic skill set. They are the most entrepreneurial generation and I see a hunger to succeed and make money and become successful, and that will take anyone a long way. As a millennial myself, over time I've made money in every one of those assets that I mentioned above and made money along the way. If I had to start again from zero, I would start a side hustle, preferably something on the internet, make money, make recurring revenues from that, and then start to plow that into the stock market. Preferably, like I did, invest into some of the FANGs, your Facebooks, your Apples, your Netflix, your Google, Alphabet, and then I would look to invest into property to make sure I have an asset, a roof over my home. These days, it's easier said than done, but it is doable. People are doing it around the world. It just takes a little bit longer and a little bit more planning and organization. And for those of you that are disheartened that Bitcoin is just too expensive, don't worry, there are plenty of more altcoins and crypto coins coming in the new metaverse that we're going into, and it will mint millionaires faster than ever in the history of mankind. I will leave the next video here. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth.